Alright, so in this tutorial, the topic is going to be about polygonal modeling workflow setup. First thing I want to do is talk about the perspective camera. I'm going to select the camera from the outliner. I'm going to select it. And I need to see the attribute editor. Here's my attribute editor tab. If you do not see this, these three tabs, click on this. And I need to click on the perspective shape tab, camera attributes, focal length to 90, focal length, set it to 90. You'll notice it kind of zooms in a bit, the camera. Then I need my near clip plane set to 0.01. Near clip plane 0.01. 0.01. Looks like nothing happens, but there's a change. So what did that do? Well, here to show you what that does, I need to create something. So let me create a cube. I'm gonna go create Polygonal primitives cube. Make sure you're on the modeling tab, just in case, you never know. Create Polygonal primitives cube. There's my cube. And then, regarding polygonal modeling workflow, if you press F will zoom in onto your object that is currently selected. So if I'm way out here, like far away, if I press F as in Frank, boom. F as in Frank. Let me pause the video. I'm going to write down over here for important hotkeys regarding modeling. Alright, so I put that down here. Press F. Press to zoom in on your model. F. Okay, so I'm gonna go in a bit. Alright, I'm gonna do Alt 5, Alt and 5. That's wireframe unshaded. Alright. If I type in, let's see what was by default. I think it was what, 35 or 30 degrees, right? You notice the lines, they start to skew. And when you're modeling things like geometric objects and stuff, it doesn't help that it's having a skewing the perspective. So when you type in, like I mentioned, 90 for the focal length, it takes away the perspective distortion. See? Into being more of a isometric view without any distortion. So that's what that does. And regarding the near clip plane, right? If I go back to default, which is just 0.1, watch what happens. I'm gonna zoom in. Right, let me close my outliner for a moment. Right, if I set to 30, there. See, this is clipping. So basically, when you set this to 0.01, see how the clipping goes away, right? And then, but you see the distortion, right? Right there, perfect example. And if I just type in 90, this distortion is gone. All right, finally I was able to explain that clearly. Okay, so that's done. So every time I cover a subject, I'm gonna gray it out like that, right? I just gray it out. Then there's the custom modeling shelf, right? I covered that in the the Maya UI for user interface tutorial. Right, here's our custom shelf for modeling. And just to remind you, there's also this one, the default poly modeling shelf as well. Okay. All right, so let me just gray that out. Then there's symmetry. All right, let me go to the channel box. All right. Always be mindful of your compass. Tells you where you are. So symmetry. This is a symmetry option right here. Right now it's off. But if I choose object, I recommend only using the object X, Y, and Z rather than the world and topology. Ignore these. So let's say object X. Now it says symmetry object X. What does that do? So like in Illustrator, where you can do a reflection or symmetry, you can do that also in 3D. So I'm just gonna convert this into vertices, right? I covered components in another tutorial. So what I'm gonna do is select that, okay? Or just select that, and you notice how the other side picks up on it, see? If I select that, the other side, it picks up on it. So that's symmetry. And if I do object Y, right? If I click that, the Y as in up and down, whatever I pick up, it's gonna pick down. Whatever I pick down, it's also gonna pick up. Okay, so that's your symmetry. And I'm gonna turn it off for now. I'm gonna hide this. Right click and hold. Choose object mode. I'm gonna hide it, pressing H. So in here, this is the center of the 3D world, right? So when you're doing modeling and using symmetry, the 3D object must be in the default 000 grid space, right? So I'm gonna show my cube again. Press H. I don't recommend moving it around. You know, you're gonna want to have it dead center, like that, to use a symmetry. And so that's what I mean by this. Okay. All right. Important hotkeys. I covered these extensively in other tutorials going forward, but I'm gonna just mention it here as well. So right mouse click and hold. What that means is you select something in an object, you click on the right mouse button and you hold it. You click on the right mouse button and you hold it. That will bring up a floating menu, right? This is for your components: edge, object, vertex, face. I covered this extensively in the object and component mode tutorial, but I'm also mentioning here right mouse button. Then there is your shift and right mouse click and hold. Hold on the shift, hold on the right mouse button together, hold it together, and here's a new floating menu set for component based modeling. All right, I also covered that in another tutorial, but I want to still mention it here. And I just mentioned about the F to zoom in. It can be right here, select it, press F, boom, right? Good. All right, so we covered all of that. Then there's your modeling toolkit panel. Right now it's on the channel box, modeling toolkit. And this, you know, right here, component, multi-component. There's your, I need to select something. Right now it's in vertices. This is object mode. This is your vertices mode, right? Tells us how many vertices are selected. This here is your edge mode. right? Again, I talk about this extensively and in another tutorial. And this is your face mode, right? This is your UVs. You won't be messing with this during the modeling projects. This is for a different project, so you could just ignore that, right? The other thing I want to talk about is the soft select, B as in Bob. It's an annoying issue. So right now it's closed, but let's say you're modeling or you're learning modeling and you're kind of fumbling around with the hotkeys, and you could accidentally press B as in Bob, because I don't know how it happens. I've done it before. This turns on your soft selection. So what that does is, if I click on that, it'll do things like this. It's basically a gradient soft selection, gradient based selection. And a lot of times you won't understand what just happened. You don't think you pressed anything, but you actually did by pressing B as in Bob. Because if here, you'll notice it's checked on. If I click on B as in Bob again, now it's turned off. If I press B as in Bob, now it's turned on, and you get this warning. But it's easy to overlook these kind of things. So the main point is, in the modeling toolkit, you'll notice B to turn it off, B as in Bob. And the worst part is when you try to save the file and open it back up, thinking things will be kind of reset, it doesn't. It'll still click checked on. So I want to mention it right now to get that out of the way. And then there's your move tool, right? Meaning your custom edit move tool, way down here. This here seems miscellaneous. It doesn't seem that important. There's no fancy icons. It's very, 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 very useful, super useful, which I'm going to talk about in another video. And these are your other tools: combine, boolean, bevel, extrude. Then there's your setting up your polygon count. This is your polygon count. And these are your components like vertices, edges, faces. Right? It gives you statistics of how many you have. And this is useful, very, very useful for troubleshooting if there's something wrong with your model, right? So in order to pull this up, you want to go to display, heads up display, poly count. So let's go to display, right here. Heads up display, poly count. Okay, grid on and off. This is my grid on and off. I use this when I have a lot of things going on and my grid is annoying me because I can't see certain things. I can turn it off. Now I can turn it back on. Then there's your wireframe on shaded, which is either this one right here, wireframe on shaded, or the hotkey is Alt 5, toggle it on and off, Alt 5. Then there's your multi-sample anti-alias. That one is right here. What that does is it just makes the lines and the shading just look that much nicer. Here's it off. See how it's jaggedy lines? Right, you see that? If I turn it on, nice and clean lines. Then there's your isolate select. Right here. So what that is where if I make a whole bunch of stuff, all right, I'm gonna put that there, I'm gonna put that there, put that here, put that here, got a whole bunch of stuff, right? So let's say I only want to see this. If I hit my isolate select, there, let go. If I only want to see that, isolate select. And then I can turn it back on, off and on. Right? You just have to remember if you're using it or not. And these icons, they only work for this particular panel. So whatever you do here, it does not update here or here. It does not. I repeat, it does not update. All right, they're all individual panels. All right, so that's that. Next, backface culling. So I'm gonna grab all this, hide it, delete it. I'm gonna just make that, right? Let's make a plane. I just want to show an example. And then if I make this, right? I'm gonna hide my grid for a moment. Backface culling. If I look underneath, right? This plane, this is a plane. I can't see through it. But the moment I go for my viewport panel, shading, backface culling, check it on, boom. Very useful. I use this all the time. So that's what that is. All right. So that's everything for polygon modeling workflow setup.